is CORDIScovery. Hello, this is CORDIScovery, and I'm Abigail Acton. Today we will be exploring the reality of virtual reality. Is there a headset heading your way? Or are the cost and the relatively limited content going to hold back uptake for yet a while? Digital communication has flourished for many of us during the pandemic. We have accepted, indeed welcomed, what might have been novel methods of contact for many of us. So are we now hungry for the next evolution in digital communications? Is there a virtual reality revolution around the corner? If so, how can the technology be applied? Will VR be just another bone of contention between screen-addicted adolescents and their frazzled parents? Or can the inherent characteristics of virtual reality, communicating at a distance, but in a space that feels intimate, be harnessed to really revolutionise the way we interact? My guests today, who have been supported by the EU's Horizon 2020 programme, may be able to tell us. Virtual reality avatars, digital representations of ourselves, a way to foster empathy, or yet another medium providing a cloak of anonymity that can be abused. A very warm welcome to Dr. Salvador Alvidrez, Marie Curie Research Fellow at Queen's University Belfast. Salvador is interested in the socio-psychological effects of communication technologies. He is the principal investigator of the Contact VERT project, which is looking into the use of virtual reality for reducing sectarian prejudice. Hello, Salvador.
Hi, thank you, Abigail.
Coordinator of the Didmo project, Dr. Verónica Orvalho, is fascinated by the ways in which people communicate and share knowledge. She has used her engineering and research backgrounds to create the Didmo company, which has patented technology to generate digital humans. Veronica's inventions have been used by Microsoft, Universal, Sony, and others. Welcome, Verónica.
Hello.
Sergi Ferandez, Director of the Media and Internet Unit at i2CAT, is a computer engineer and researcher. Sergi's background is in natural language processing, and he has recently been focusing on immersive and interactive systems. He was the VERT Together project's coordinator. Welcome, Sergi.
Hi, Abigail. It's a pleasure.
Salvador, I have a couple of questions for you, believe it or not. The Contact VERT project has been exploring how virtual reality can be used to bring divided communities closer together. Can I ask you, how did you first get interested in the way that technology affects our communication?
Well, I guess that this all started many years ago when the text messaging feature was first introduced in mobile phones. So we are talking about many years ago. And I was intrigued about how sometimes it's easier to de-escalate conflicts just by using text messages. I mean, in contrast to trying to solve it face-to-face, in which sometimes you make it worse, actually. I was also intrigued by how sometimes it's also easier to make social bonds with people that otherwise, in real life, in face-to-face interactions is kind of difficult. So communication technologies can actually be useful tools for reducing conflict and improving social relationships.
Very interesting. And which areas are you particularly interested in looking at the moment? What are you studying at the moment for this?
I'm working particularly with the impression formation line of research. So, for instance, in VR, I'm working about how to put certain elements in the virtual environment affect the way in which users identify with a social category, and thus the whole elements associated to this category, such as, for instance, I can see, this former enemy as a part of my new group online. So that's our line of research currently.
Okay, fascinating. We've got used to digital conferencing tools which bring people together at a safe distance. So what's the additional benefit of VR?
I think that the main difference is the illusion of presence, because, for instance, in Zoom meetings, people are conscious that conversations are constrained only by what you see in the screen frame. In virtual reality, users actually move in a three-dimensional space in which they interact and feel as if they are present in that environment. This illusion is closer to what our senses interpret as reality, so making social interactions more vivid. Of course, interactions always depend upon the state of the relationships offline, because it is not the same having interaction with someone that you already know, someone that you consider a friend, or someone that you consider an enemy. right?
And your research, and that's very true, and it's interesting. So what I'm curious to know then, when you actually put people together to see how this worked out in practice, can I ask you who your subjects were and what did you find?
Yes, I ran this previous study in the US some years ago, and by that time I was interested on how to use VR for reducing prejudice towards ethnic minorities. And I use only students because most of the time I use experimental study, so I use students who volunteers, and they customize their avatars. They were asked to customize their avatars to either look like themselves, I mean, their physical traits, skin color, and so on, or to look like someone totally different from them. And this was just before having the interaction with the person of the ethnic minority. And our findings were really interesting because apparently they felt more confident, and prejudice was reduced in the conditions in which they were, so to say, anonymous, because they were looking like someone different from them. And I think that they removed this social pressure of feeling accountable when they are having an interaction, even if this is only an avatar-based interaction.
No, that's fascinating. And perhaps also it relieves the pressure of having to appear to support the group that you belong to, even if the group that you belong to might have feelings or beliefs that you find perhaps too extreme or too strong, but you feel that you're obliged to go along with the crowd. Whereas if you have the anonymity of an avatar, maybe you can actually express a more moderate position without fearing that people are going to condemn you from your own group. Is that something you found?
Certainly. For instance, there's this line of research in which the clothes you're using with your avatar sometimes influence the picture you have about yourself. So, for instance, if people are using black robes or black dresses, tend to be more aggressive than people wearing avatars in white clothes. And that's because they are internalizing, a series of associations with the colors and so on. So the same happens with people playing with this kind of identity. So if I am seeing like a member of this group who might be very prejudiced, and I change my features to look like someone that doesn't belong to that group, that might improve the interaction, actually.
That's very interesting. It's a little bit like putting prisoners in pink overalls and stuff like that to mitigate violence and stuff. Does anyone have any questions for Salvador? I think this is fascinating. Veronica, maybe perhaps you do, because you're interested in the notion of avatars in Didmo.
Yeah, definitely. So it's fascinating, Salvador, what you've just shared. I was actually wondering when you mentioned about the accountability of actually seeing yourself or not seeing yourself on the virtual space. How do you think about the responsibility concept, right? So if I actually see myself in a virtual world and it's really me, right? How does responsibility changes if I don't see myself and I see someone else that I control?
You mean in terms of like self-constraining?
Yeah, definitely. Like if I see myself and I post a picture of myself on a social media, I would be more careful of what I do because it's actually my image, my face, my body. I wonder in your experiments or experiences that you've done, if you've found any correlation in terms of responsibility with seeing yourself in the virtual world. Does that make sense?
Yes, of course. For instance, the side model, I'm not going into very theoretical terms, but basically, when you feel accountable, you feel like committed. Once that you are in the virtual world, you feel committed to hold this personality, because it's not only what you think about yourself, it's also what you think the others are thinking about or expect about yourself in terms of your physical appearance. And this is very interesting because, for instance, with this new line of research for perspective taking, they ask people to embody avatars belonging to different, to stigmatized social groups. I mean, in order to put in the shoes of other person. And this instill empathy And this is all based on the self-perception of being in the shoes of a member of a stigmatized group. Now, you have to imagine that this kind of effect it was not found on people that look like themselves. I mean, to the group they belong. So yes, there's a commitment. Once that you are identifiable, we call it that accountability, because you are accountable in terms of responsibility for your actions. Yes, somehow you are responsible, but only in terms of what you think the others are expecting from you.
Any other questions at all? Sergi? Yes, please.
Yes, Salvador, thank you for your explanations. Which use cases, let's say, which conflicts examples can you explain us? And then also, which are the difficulties that you find when you try to scale this into certain conflicts? Let's say the conflict itself makes this interaction impossible.
Yes, of course. Thank you for the question. It's very interesting because, for instance, obviously, when the level of conflict is, they reach a point in which nobody wants to have any kind of interaction at all, not in person, neither in a virtual environment, and so these kind of tools actually won't work. But you can use it as a tool together with other strategies. You can use technological tools like VR or text messaging, or having a friend of a friend who is a friend of that group, and so on. But you have to increase the number of social cues, so to say, before having a face-to-face interaction.
So basically, it's mechanisms for bridge building.
Yes. It's not a tool that is going to solve the conflict, but it's going to help you together with other tools to solve that specific conflict.
Great. Thank you. Veronica, if we could just talk a little bit now about the Didmo project, which aimed to allow people to generate a realistic animated digital twin of themselves. It's very interesting to hear what you're up to, having heard Salvador's description of how useful it is sometimes to adopt a different appearance. Why did you feel it's needed for people to be able to do this, to create a digital twin of themselves?
So we created Didmo because we strongly believe that a new interaction model on how we communicate a person with a software, or a person with a software and another person, it's really needed. Somehow someone needs to create a new way on how people will interact with computers. So we're able to take a selfie and then automatically upload that into the cloud, and then create a digital twin of you. And I'll just tell a story which I think it best exemplify it. So in 2011, we created this experimental game for teaching kids with autism to draw and mimic facial expressions on a digital character. And we tested with many institutions. And in one occasion, one of the kids with his dad was using the application. And after a while, he started to smile. He suffered from very, very severe autism. And at the end of the session, as a good researcher, we ask, okay, well, what are you going to do with it? And he says, can I take the tablet with me? It was when tablets had just came out. And I said, of course. And I said, well, what would you do? And what was remarkable about that day was that his dad said that he will use the tablet and the digital character to communicate with his son by drawing how he felt, and being the digital character, the interface to communicate with his son. So that was many years ago, but it was kind of like the big aha moment when I saw that a technology that was being built for film and games to create digital characters automatically so we can populate virtual worlds, suddenly it had a much more meaningful usage.
Wider usage.
Completely wider usage. And I felt very represented with Salvador because I participated in several European projects where we use digital humans as a way to study how you could increase empathy in people that suffer, for instance, for domestic violence problems. So you will do exactly what Salvador was saying, which is you put yourself on the virtual body as the aggressor, and then you would feel being the victim, how people would react with it. But in any case, long story short, we strongly believe that digital characters will be the new interaction model in the future, and you will be able to, from trying on virtual garments and making good choices on how you want to look, to actually giving the possibility of someone that doesn't have a face, or because they suffer an accident, or like Steve Hawking that could not speak, we could actually create a digital representation of that person, and then suddenly that person can have a full 3D representation and be inclusive in the future of the internet. They can speak any language, so we can cross any barrier in terms of language and culture.
It's almost as if the sky's the limit. It's just our imaginations which could hold us back, and a bit the technology, which I'm sure Sergi is going to help us to understand. But I have one more question for you, Veronica, before we do move on to Sergi. And that is, we talk about the avatars, and we've talked about how children relate to the avatars. Is there a danger that making avatars more realistic and being able to be the ideal you, the you that you've always wanted to be, could kids and also, of course, adults find the whole process more addictive? Could people end up trying to live their best lives, as it were, online? It's some sort of dystopian future there. But what do you think?
Well, I mean, that's a very, very important question. Probably also Salvador can comment more than me, because I'm a geek technology person. But as having children and in the immersive worlds, I think it's like with every technology, we really need to limit the amount of time we are online, and understand that there's a difference between the physical and the real. And I think it is on the hands of those that develop the technology that we think of the dual use of the technology and how we build the ethics embedded into the systems that we create, and how can we, as the owners and creators of this technology, protect those that will be using it. Of course, we cannot prevent things that are going to happen, but at least we can put all the mechanisms and alerts possible.
Well, I have an extra question for Veronica, and that is, it sounds wonderful, but it's, to me, in my mind, it's still a little theoretic. So how does this actually work? What does the project achieve practically? I mean, what could I do now in order to have a digital twin?
Yeah, so the way it works is you just take a photo of yourself with a mobile phone up, and it goes into our application, and then that it's uploaded into the cloud, and it automatically generates a 3D character that is fully animatable, that can speak, move. You can pretty much, if I will give an analogy, it's kind of like having your emoji or animatable emoji, but with your photorealistic digital human. So we're a B2B type of business, so we focus on providing developers the API and the toolkits and the SDK, so companies can build the application they wish. For now, it's because this is so new.
Yeah,
people don't even know that this is possible, so they don't even know where they can use it and how. So we're working closer with companies so they include this technology as an additional element of their ongoing applications. But eventually, as these people start getting used to and they understand that this is possible, then consumers or end users will start having access to it, and we'll use it in many different ways. I think we're like in a very early beginning stage.
Sure. It's like the same with all technology. It snowballs once it gets to sort of critical mass. It starts to be absolutely everywhere. Indeed. Thank you very much, Veronica. Sergi, VRT Together wants to improve data capture, delivery and rendering to make domestic use of VR more photorealistic. Veronica was just talking about the whole notion of realism, and yeah, I mean, my question to you is a little bit the same as I asked her. If things get too realistic, is there not a danger people could lose themselves in a virtual reality concept? What do you think, Sergi?
My answer to that would be yes and no. You can get lost in everything in your life. So it depends on the use, that you give to technology. And in fact, it's not that real. Let's say, I mean, I'm sure that Veronica's work is excellent. Actually, I was going to make a question to her because basically, if you can do that with one camera, that's something we could integrate already in our system. So for those users without, let's say, depth cameras and just with a webcam, we can use your system, and let's see, mixing the technologies, we can animate these in a, let's say, more realistic way. But in the end, you may have, let's say, Verónica approach, that CGI avatar. Somehow you capture reality and you recreate reality, and then you animate an avatar that can be more or less realistic. And that's basically the problem that we saw, one of the problems that we saw 4 years ago when we started the project. Because by that time, let's say 360 was in the hype, and people started to access virtual reality experiences in a more in both professional and personal situations, and they missed basically, for meaningful interactions, they missed the other person, not the other, another person, another group of people. Basically, you were alone inside the virtual reality headset. That's one problem. That the other problem is that it's difficult to insert you and your colleagues in a virtual environment in a realistic way. This is why you need to sometimes to recreate the avatar and just animate the avatar, because you cannot put the real person there. So that's basically what we try to solve. And the idea is to use video technologies and volumetric video technologies real time to
Did you feel that you're on the way to finding a solution for this and making things more realistic and more accessible? Because I know that in your heart, what you want to do is democratize virtual reality, make it more accessible to people, make it perhaps less expensive. How is that looking?
It's progressing well, let's say.
Good.
Now we have developed a full end-to-end holoconferencing system. This holoconferencing system includes avatars, very simple ones, not Veronica's ones, and what we call volumetric representations. And that's basically yourself being captured real time in 3D. Of course, if the problem is that when you get into an immersive environment, normally you wear a headset or an augmented reality headset or a virtual reality headset that are clumsy and so on. So you cannot see your colleagues' eyes. The people with whom you are inside, you cannot see their eyes. And the facial expressions are very important now in human communication. That's a problem that is not solved, neither for us, of course, because you have a headset and we cannot capture your eyes, nor for avatar based, because that's also very difficult.
Sorry to cut across you, but it begs the question. I mean, you're quite right. I mean, visual expressions are very important. We're recording this, and we're just going to use the audio, but you all have your video on because it makes our conversation more dynamic, and we can understand our meta language and our cues because we can see each other. What is the benefit then for holoconferencing versus just a simple Zoom conference like the one we're having in a way now? Why go virtual reality?
As I said, if you want to do something together and really feel that you are together, it's difficult with a video conference. I mean, we can have a very meaningful interaction and we can, let's say, exchange data and information among us using Zoom. That's okay. But if we together have to design something, for instance, and we have to think together, maybe video conferencing is not that good. And definitely, if we need to, let's say, design something in the space or explore something, or be trained together, or even if I'm a student and you are the teacher, and let's say there is a relevant role in the experience that needs to be seen in a very realistic way, video conference is still, let's say, it's great. It's the best that humanity delivered until the moment in terms of distant human communication. But there is a long way to go, and that's in the path we are.
I mean, the point about training, I think, is fascinating. One can see many applications, many scenarios in which the ability to work together to train people. I mean, I wonder whether it could be used for medicine and surgery and things like that.
Let's say a much in Spanish would be mundano. How do you say mundano in English?
Veronica, any ideas? Does anyone know? No, I don't know. Give me more of a description.
Like basic, right?
Mundano, like from the real world, let's say.
Yeah.
Not
realistic.
An ordinary stuff.
Yeah,
ordinary.
A more ordinary use case.
Collaborative. We're all being collaborative.
Yeah. let's say a more simple use case would be basically what we normally did before the pandemic. We were in my office, my team is 9 people, and we are all in a big table and we see each other. Behind the screens, we see each other. So I can move my head and say, hey, Gianluca, check these, you have these small talks that in the end is the glue of the company. And now when we are distant, we spend hours and hours in video calls because this glue, this synchronization doesn't happen. That's one thing. If I could easily wear my headset and be in my office and see my partners there, and they are at home, I'm at home, our current interaction would be much better.
Yep.
While we are not in the office.
Yeah, I can see that.
And also you can do other type of things that are not related to how users are present in the space. For instance, instead of having just one screen or 2 screens, like what I have now, in the virtual environment, you can have as many screens as you want. So I don't even need to see other partners' screen or ask him to share his screen and, let's say, occlude my screen to see my partner's screen. I have all the space to put all the screens that I want. And that, let's say, there are some companies already testing that and using that, but they don't use, let's say, the real representation of the users. They use avatars. So our hypothesis is, look, if we manage to do both things, and with Veronica's technology, we can get, let's say, users with simple webcams, also represented in a realistic way, the way we work should be much more efficient.
It adds a completely new dimension, doesn't it? Anyone got any questions? Salvador, would you have a question?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to mention, I mean, in the same line to what Sergi was explaining, is that virtual reality has the feature that provides context. And we need context, right? We need context to make a whole picture of what we are discussing, what we are seeing, what we are sharing. And that's why we use, for instance, emojis, because sometimes it's difficult to make a picture of the mood of this person I'm talking to, sorry. And that's why they have to send like a happy face or something like that. In virtual reality, you have more context for bringing a more richer interaction, so to say. And sorry.
No. But then that's good. That's true. I mean, clearly that's the case. But as Sergi was saying, you need the ability to actually have the representation of the people concerned in a realistic way, which is perhaps Veronica's strength and concept coming in. Very good. Okay, that was very interesting. Does anyone have any questions to each other that you want to ask at all? Anything still yet to raise or mention before I come to my final quick round question?
Just a very quick question to Veronica. I just saw the website as well, and I think that your work is really fantastic. And I just one question, you can share a bit of information about what is the most popular use that your clients are giving to very realistic, hyper-realistic avatars?
Yeah, so last year we got a ton of people contacting us from fashion. So the fashion industry was really big. I think, and this is just my personal opinion, mostly because it was probably one of the industries that got very dramatically affected by the pandemic. So they needed to really, really fast find new ways on how they could still monetize, still keep their brands alive. So and it was also an industry that needed kind of like a revive, right, on new ways. So fashion was really is one of the top, together with chatbots. So chatbots and people wanted to have their own influencers. So there's like every other day we get at least 1 or 2 requests of people that they want to create their own influencers. And then gaming, it's always there, but it's not where I think the technology that we're building will have the most impact. Hopefully it will be more on the areas of healthcare and education. That's where I hopefully see a few years from now the impact of what we're building.
The direction you'd like to go in. Sergi, would you have a question for Veronica?
Yes. My first question is, just to confirm, you do that, let's say you do the reconstruction with one camera?
Yeah.
And it's what type of camera?
So we do it with like a mobile phone. So like no need for like depth information either. So we can go with as simple as a simple selfie that you take with a mobile phone, and we reconstruct everything else. So we do a lot of assumptions around the face, but we could input the information like a selfie with depth, and that will be more accurate. We could input point cloud of a mobile phone, and that will be more accurate. Or we can go all the way to photogrammetry data, and you can just input 100 photos with like a Canon camera, like very high resolution, and then we will get better results. So the pipeline that we have automated for the time being is the selfie. So you take a photo and you upload it. We do have a 3D pipeline that we worked out with Sony, and we have a semi-automatic version of a photorealistic, like a photogrammetry pipeline. But we aim for scalability, so it has to be automatic.
Yeah. Sergi, another question?
Yes. Do you animate real time your avatars, or have you?
That's an awesome question. That's a really great question. So we've been pretty much in still mode and doing partnerships, just polishing the technology, and hopefully, thanks, to the European grant, next month we will be launching the first version that allows with a webcam and the AR kit, you create your Didmo, like it's your digital character, and then with the mobile phone, you can automatically animate it. Yeah.
That's fascinating, Veronica. Really, honestly, that sounds so cutting edge.
And if I can add, and text to speech. So you can actually type text and automatically animate the digital character.
And it comes out as a character speaking. That's fabulous. Thank you very much. That's super. Again, though, I mean, I see these things almost like a double-edged sword in a way. The notion of the anonymity being a means to express emotions that you maybe would like to put forward, but worried that your own group would think are too weak, or that you're not supporting your side aggressively enough. Obviously, this is a benefit of being able to wear the clothing of someone else. But we all know from the internet what anonymity can also do. So I'm curious if I could ask each of you for a brief answer here, but just on your gut instinct. I'm going to ask you one after the other. I think I'll start this time with Sergi. Nice short answer. What do you think the challenges are that VR might bring, and how can we prepare the ground to mitigate those challenges?
I think that the main stopper for VR to become mainstream is the hardware and the quality of the image and the quality of the immersive sound.
Right. Excellent.
That's basically
you think that's
the main problem that we see. The rest, software people can solve it. But the hardware, there are a lot of things there that let's say it's more than software. It's physics, it's electronics.
So that's the bottleneck right now,
in my opinion.
Right. So that's one of the challenges that holds us back with regards to how we can actually get VR out there. But if we actually do get VR out there, question to Veronica, if it does become really widely available and very, very photorealistic and so on, what do you think that might be some of the societal challenges, and how can we mitigate them?
The societal challenges. It's the preservation of our identity, right? I think is, how can we protect who we are in the most authentic way? So I think GDPR, has a lot to contribute to it.
So GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulations.
Yeah, exactly. So again, with the EU, we have awesome advisors in terms of the ethics. So we can embed in, not just in our terms and conditions, which is the correct use of protecting our identity and the identity of the people that use our software, but also training all our team. So when they are developing the software, they are responsible for what they're doing in terms of security. So.
Very good. Yeah, that's very interesting. Salvador, what challenges are there coming our way, do you think, if this really takes off? And what can we do to mitigate those challenges?
Yes, pretty much as Sergi and Veronica were saying, the first challenge is hardware. I agree, because, particularly our experiments are not longer than they don't take longer than 30 minutes because after 30 minutes, the headset is very heavy and people start to get bored and remove it and so on. And also, as well as Veronica was saying, it's like, what does it mean that having an hyper-realistic avatar today in times of phishing? It's like when there are so many scams out there, when there are artificial intelligence giving animation to your hyper-realistic avatar. So they can make a fake of you doing some kind of actions in some point, and then, they can share it in YouTube, right? The risk of being of a leak or a security leak or whatever, that your avatar can be taken or someone else can have access to your personal information, it's there. And that's why I still trust on mechanisms like the GDPR and so, because that's the last point of defense for these kind of shares. Sergi?
No, I just wanted to support this concept, because, let's say, the challenges in extended reality with regards to privacy and rights and ownership is amazing. Because imagine, I was discussing with a colleague today, I have a building, and now you can basically get a picture of my building and put an augmented reality thing there. Imagine that you put something that I want to be seen on my building, even if it's in an application from a student. If it's a student application, it's no problem. But if it's Facebook and anyone can do whatever on the top of my building, not even a person, not even, imagine if we are talking about persons, but on my, they want to put something digital on my building, and the building is my property. Why others have the right to put a digital thing layered on my building? Because in the end, it's mine. There are papers that they say it's mine. So that triggers a lot of challenges. For instance, you cannot have cameras pointing to the street in Europe. No, you need to have the cameras, security cameras, pointing to your, property. But on the other way, you can take a cell phone and go in the street and record everything. So what are we going to do now with all these digital twins, extended reality contents everywhere?
It sounds like what we really need to do is have another podcast on, the opening of the capacity to do more and more, and how we actually assert our own rights to not be abused within that scenario. So yeah, that's a whole other conversation, I think. Very interesting. Absolutely. Veronica, do you want to add anything at all, since we've been talking about hyperrealism and the possibility for abuse? Do you have something to add to that?
I mean, yeah, I just have to say that each of us that develops and even uses are the ultimate responsibles of how the technology should be used, can be used, and would impact those around us. So it doesn't really matter how much regulation there is out there. We all have to be responsible for what we do. How can we prevent the wrong use of it? It's impossible once you put a technology like ours out there with an API that anyone can grab it. So it goes back to, it's kind of like a cycle, right? It goes back to our own level of responsibility.
Yes. Well, thank you very, very much, all of you, for that very interesting conversation, which went well beyond the realms of just the technical into all sorts of moral philosophy and wider applications. That was fascinating. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very good.
We need to put a project together, guys. I'm going to send you an email.
Yeah. Yes.
Definitely.
It's not the first time this has happened. We get some nice synergies going between the guests quite often.
Okay.
Bye, lovely. Good luck, everyone.
Thank you, Miguel.
Are you interested in what other EU-funded projects are doing in the virtual realm? Take a look at issue 103 of the Research EU magazine, available on the CORDIS website, cordis.europa.eu. Here you can also find daily news articles and interviews with researchers working in a very broad range of domains, from archaeology to zoology. If you're interested in scientific innovation, we'll have something to inspire you. Results packs drill down deeper, gathering groups of projects by subject area, and the magazine offers insights into a different subject every month in its special section. Maybe you're involved in a project or would like to apply for funding. Take a look at what others are doing in your domain. So come and check out the research that's revealing what makes our world tick. Our next episode explores the final frontier, space. Join me on a trip to the stars. We're always happy to hear from you, so drop us a line, editorial@cordis.europa.eu. Until next time.